Hi, Chad here with Purple Collar Life, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 quick tips learning to use a chainsaw. Now if it's your first time here, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. If you like something you see in this video, we'd really appreciate it if you'd give us a thumbs up. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back to Purple Collar Life. We appreciate you watching. In the next several minutes I'm going to hopefully talk to you about, at least in my experience, what I've learned, quick tips to have successful times cutting firewood with a chainsaw. Now, I am no expert. This should not be taken as advice or instruction on how to use a chainsaw. This is just my experience and what I think are the 5 quick things you need to adhere to be safe and successful cutting up some firewood. So number 1 is safety, 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 safety. Now, what I mean by that is a lot of times people go out to cut wood, and if you're only gonna be cutting for a little bit, you think, I'm just gonna grab the chainsaw and go out and cut. And I'm guilty of that for decades. Just in the last year, I finally had the proper attire. For Christmas, I got the Husqvarna safety kit. It includes these chaps. It included gloves. So safety, 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 safety includes protecting your eyes, your ears, your legs, your hands, your feet, and others. So let's talk a little bit about that. So your eyes, obviously I've got safety glasses on, and there is additional eye protection on the forestry hat. Your ears, I have used in the past the 3M noise canceling headphones or the IsoTunes Pro 2.0. This Husqvarna helmet just happens to include ear protection, so I use that when I'm using the chainsaw with the helmet on. So that's your eyes, your ears. Your hands, a good set of gloves, preferably leather. Now I know these can get hot in the summertime. I do also have a more lightweight set of chainsaw gloves from Stihl that have some mesh netting between the fingers that helps kind of give some ventilation to your hands. Your legs, now this is the one I'm most guilty of. Oftentimes I would have eye, ear, and hand protection, but I didn't have leg protection for a long time. So I finally have these set of chaps. These came all in one kit, the helmet, the gloves, the chaps, the eyewear. So I'll put a link down below if I can find it to an Amazon affiliate link to a kit like this one. I don't know if it'll be the same one or not. And then finally, your feet. This is another one I'm very guilty of. If I just have tennis shoes on, I'm gonna cut for just a little bit. Sometimes I do use the tennis shoes as my footwear, and that's not always smart. You should have a set of steel-toed and nice work boots to be out cutting firewood. And then last but not least, in the number 1 tip of safety is others. You wanna make sure that everyone else around you is safe when you're cutting wood. They should have the same eye, ear protection. If they're not using the saw around you, they still want to protect their eyes and their ears, and then other appropriate attire for the task that they're doing. But one way you can protect them, you would never want anyone working with you to be in the situation they're in right now where the camera is. So if I'm cutting through a log right here, there is potential that in front of the chain there could be something that flies out, or if the chain would happen to break, it could fly forward. So you always want to make sure when you're cutting wood, no one is directly in front of where you're cutting. Tip number 2 in the 5 quick tips learning to use a chainsaw. You want to be in an area that's clutter-free when you're trying to cut. Now, you can see if I were trying to cut this log, there's a lot of things to be in my way, and that could mean that, I could be kind of sidestepping, I could trip on something under my feet. There's a lot of potential for injury, and you just always want to make sure you have a clean area to work in. So tip number 2, have the area where you're going to be cutting cleared out so that you're not tripping on logs, roots, or sticks, and you can easily cut where you need to cut. Tip number 3, avoid the dirt. Now I'm talking in this video just about cutting wood that's laying on the ground. I'm not talking about cutting trees down. That's an entirely different story, and one that maybe we can cover in a future video. But if you're cutting wood on the ground, the dirt is your enemy. You can see with this log that I've already made some starting cuts through, but I didn't go the whole way through the log because I'm trying to keep any of my chain from touching the dirt. Now sometimes, in most cases, that means cutting through to the ground. But other times, if you've got a log that has mud and dirt on it, that dirt will also dull your chain and make it really difficult to make future cuts. So you can see here I've cut most of the way through without getting down to the dirt. And then the next thing I'll do is make a clean cut here, which will let me roll this log and cut these without being down in the dirt. I'll show you how I do that. Tip number 5 is use the dogs. These teeth on the inside edge of the chainsaw are called the dogs, and you use those to dig into the wood as you're cutting through it. The mistake I see a lot of people make, in my opinion, is cutting out here at the end of the chain. And sometimes that is necessary type of cut, depending on where you're at and what you're cutting. You can see when I cut the pieces up in the previous step, I did have to use the end of the chain to cut up through those previous cuts I had made. But most of the time, you want the chainsaw to be with the inside base of the chainsaw up against the wood, so you're cutting down through. Any of the extra chain up here at the tip is beyond the wood. And that's for safety reasons. The dogs help keep the chainsaw attached to the log. They actually also give you a pivot point, and they keep the chainsaw from kicking back at you. So it's always a good idea to keep those dogs engaged with the wood. And let me show you how to do that. Now you can see there how I used the dogs in the wood to help make the cut. Another piece of advice I would say, use the back leverage to let the dogs kick in and then pull up. Some people I see cut really far down forward, and I don't think that works as good as cutting far down back and then letting the dogs help pull the front of the bar through the wood. Let me show you how that works. Tip number 5 has to do with 2 of the supplies you use in the chainsaw. Supply number 1 is the gas and oil. I recommend using good bar and chain oil. In this case, I use the Stihl bar and chain oil. And then gasoline, I only use ethanol-free or the Stihl Moto mix. Then the last part of tip number 5, which is the supplies, is your chain. You always want to make sure you have a good, tight, and sharp chain. Now, when I say tight, you don't want it to be too tight. You still want to be able to pull the chain down out of the bar. You can see I can pull down like this, and there is some ability for the chain to flex. If you have it too tight, it actually binds on itself. But if it's too loose and the chain can pull completely down out of the bar, then you need to tighten it. And I've done videos in the past on how to tighten that. But basically, you're loosening these 2 nuts that hold the bar in place, not removing completely, just loosening. Then you use the screwdriver portion of this tool. A lot of people call this a scrunch. And you're tightening this screw, turning clockwise to tighten the chain on the bar, and then retightening these nuts. The other thing that I said about the chain is that it needs to be sharp. So the last part of tip number 5 is how to sharpen or where to get a chain sharpened. Now, for a long time I had my chain sharpened at the chainsaw dealership. Just in the last year or so, I've started using the Stihl 2-in-1 file guide. This is a great tool. I've done several videos on how to use these. I'll put the links to those up above. But being able to sharpen your own chain, it's quick and easy, and make sure that you get good cuts every time. Makes chainsawing much easier when you have a good sharp chain. Now, in case you're wondering what chainsaw I'm using, this is the Stihl MS290 Farm Boss. I also have the MS271 Farm Boss. Great saws. I'm not saying that these are the only saws that someone should use, but I've had really good experience with them. So let's review the 5 quick tips to learning to use a chainsaw to cut firewood. Number 1, safety, 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 safety. Protecting your eyes, ears, legs, hands, feet, and others around you. Number 2, clean the area around where you're going to be cutting. Number 3, avoid the dirt. Number 4, use the dogs while you're cutting. And number 5, the supplies for your chainsaw: the ethanol-free gas, a sharp chain, good bar oil, the right tension on your chain. And hopefully those 5 quick tips to learning to use a chainsaw will help you out. Again, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Come back and visit Purple Collar Life another time if this is your first time visiting. We've got lots of other great videos if you want to look back through what we've done in the past. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again the next time.